Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining us today. This is the second of our three-part webinar series where we are sharing not only what is new with Tatara TXP, the talent experience platform, but most importantly how you can use it effectively and to tie in with today's webinar, engage with your users in a very different but simple way. Now, all of these sessions are being recorded and shared with you all, as well as being available on our YouTube channel. I can see some new names joining us that weren't in the first part of the webinar series, so please do feel free to watch that first part at your own convenience. And as others are still joining, we'll just kick off with the introductions first. So hello, I'm Johnny. I'll be kind of providing a brief overview of what we'll be covering today before handing over to my co-host and colleague, Kenny. Hi, Kenny.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time again, Kenny, and we look forward to hearing more about Tatara Engage very shortly. But for now, the interactive part, this is about Tatara Engage, so you are obliged to engage with us. So whilst we can't hear your voices, you do have the ability to ask questions as we go along. If you look to the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see an option to ask us a question. We do want your interaction. The more questions, the better. This session is for you. You are here for a purpose, so please do ask your questions, and we'll either provide a response to the question in the chat, or we'll group any similar questions to discuss at different intervals throughout the presentation as well. So for today, we'll have a short recap on what Tatara TXP is before looking at Tatara Engage in a bit more depth. There are so many new features, and we do have limited time on these sessions where we really focus on the key features, which are all based on discussions we've had with customers and many other organizations interested in and looking to implement Tatara Engage as their LXP. So for those that are using Microsoft Teams as well, we do have some seamless integration that we can share with you today as well, and how you can embed your learning and communication in the tools you already use, which is quite exciting. Then we'll finish off this much shorter session than the first with an open Q&A at the end. So I see more people have joined us now. You're all very welcome. You've made it in time, don't worry. And for those maybe that aren't as familiar with ourselves, Synergy Learning, we are a leading Tatara Moodle partner. Over 15 years experience now in supporting many different types of organizations across a range of different industries. It's really about getting the best from your learning technology to deliver the learning experiences and outcomes that best align with your organizational and ultimately your user needs as well. So during that time, we've supported just over 1,000 platform implementations and enhancements, and we bring quite an extensive level of experience and useful insights for all of our customers. And briefly saying, the customers we do support, we were very excited that 2 of our customer implementations won Best Project Awards back in February 2021, just last month. And we're delighted to share that success with both Western Union and Notts Fire and Rescue. And we look forward to helping our customers use Tatara Engage to not only increase productivity, performance, and morale, but hopefully receive recognition like this for their efforts in transforming learning in the workplace as well. So let's start. So again, very kind of quickly, what is TXP? Our first session really kind of covered that in detail, but TXP stands for Talent Experience Platform. It's Tatara's latest release that supports you in building a better workplace, helps you increase resilience and prosper in what is a very fast changing world, especially at the moment. TXP is quite unique in how it really addresses new and emerging needs for enhanced learning and development. And the 3 parts of the talent experience platform that we can see here really combine to unlock the full potential of your workforce, so ensuring they can learn, engage, and perform to deliver where it counts. And at the heart of the TXP is Tatara Learn, very powerful LMS. And knowing the people who are here with us today and potentially watching, they're very aware of what that can provide. But it also has a fully integrated suite of new products that complement each other in Tatara Perform for performance management and appraisals, and Tatara Engage, which is what we're going to focus on today, as a learning experience platform. These are critically important areas for organizations and individuals themselves to really kind of thrive and succeed. And we've seen an increased need for wider learning, engagement and collaboration with peers. And Tatara Engage really provides that personalized and productive approach to capturing that knowledge and sharing learning as well. So the big question that really comes up is, what does Tatara Engage bring that Tatara Learn doesn't? And Engage is a very easy to use learning experience platform, LXP, as we've mentioned. It really engages, unites your workforce and uses the power of collaboration and more kind of informal learning to support a higher performance in your organization. And it effectively flips the responsibility of learning. It is there to complement rather than be compared with Tatara Learn. Whilst you can collaborate and share in Tatara Learn already, it does provide a structured approach to your learning. Tatara Engage does that flip where it focuses more on the learners, like more on your workforce, and allows them to capture, create and curate their own experiences, their own knowledge. And using these collaborative workspaces, they can really share that knowledge and content they have accessed or created themselves with their peers. And that content can then be discussed and shared with other individuals within other workspaces or embedded within your structured courses into Tatara Learn as well. So you can kind of imagine as the administrator or even content creator of your current platform being able to open up and collect all the knowledge and experience that exists across your workforce, and that information that is maybe hard to kind of get at times or kind of capture, and allow them to kind of add that content in. You can then create these personalized playlists that groups that content together in a way that really supports the development of new starters, promoted employees, or even just your existing team as well. It really does encourage and foster engagement, and the more you use it, the more it learns about your users and the type of content available, and really unlocks the power and potential of recommendations. So when users log into your platform, they have relevant content being presented to them. So it's pushing content to them and provides them the opportunity to add feedback or even share with others as well. But listen, I won't completely steal what Kenny's going to talk about. So before we kick off with Kenny's kind of more detailed overview of the key features in Tatara Engage, I'm going to do a bit of a shameless plug of our final webinar in the series that's taking place next Thursday, same time, where we're going to take a more detailed look at Tatara Perform. So if you are interested in how you can use TXP and Tatara Perform to get the best from and motivate your workforce, please do sign up and join us next week as well. So I suppose it's time for me now to hand over to Kenny to do the rest of the talking. I'll be sitting here and be waiting to answer or capture your questions for discussion, or any comments you have. Please do share them, but for now I'll hand over to you, Kenny.
Thanks Johnny, thanks for that. Okay, so Johnny's sort of given a reasonably good summary of actually what Engage is. So I'm going to repeat some of these aspects just in this slide here. So as Johnny indicated, Engage is an LXP, and it's different from an LMS. So it provides a platform for users to create their own learning resources, and users can collaborate more informally in private or public workspaces to share their knowledge and experience. And again, what Johnny has indicated previously, you can interact, comment, rate other users' content, for example. So it also provides a level of recommendations to users based on the workspaces they're associated with. Now, Engage, it is a TXP product, so it does mean that it can be standalone or sit alongside one of the other Tatara TXP products, Learn and Perform, and that can be both or just one of them. And these are called flavors of TXP. So for some organizations, it might be best for Engage to sit alongside, for example, Tatara Learn, as they are quite complementary, as you will see as we go through the presentation, particularly when it comes to MS Teams integration. So we'll be delving into the main functionality of Tatara Engage throughout this presentation. So what's the first thing you need to do? Well, all the content in Tatara Engage is created in workspaces. Really the first task is to create workspaces that users can collaborate on. Now, all users actually can create their own workspaces by default. When creating a workspace, you need to define its name, its description, whether it's a public or private workspace, and we'll look at that in a wee second, and a related image. And when you're providing the description, you can also add hashtags to make it more searchable. And again, we'll look at where you actually do search for workspaces in a moment. So in relation to a public workspace, it's one you can join and see on a workspace search, which again we'll look at in a second. But also, as I mentioned, there's a thing called a private workspace. So this is one where you need to be, you must be invited or you request to join to the owner of the workspace. So also, when you're setting up a private workspace, you can actually even indicate whether it's hidden to non-members on the search. So how do you get and find workspaces? How do you get to be a member? There is a workspace search. This is a dedicated area listing all visible workspaces for the end user. And users can filter by the type, so like for example, a public or private, and by their membership status. There's also a free text search which searches for a match in the name of the workspace and the description, and obviously that includes the hashtags that you might have applied in the description. So if you are able to join a public workspace, a join button, as you can see in the screen here, is shown, and you can leave a workspace once you've joined it in the actual workspace section. So when you access and you're a member of the workspace, it displays a number of different things. So it displays the description on the right hand side of the workspace. It shows you an image of the workspace and the name of the workspace, and indicates whether it's a public or private workspace. And it also has a discussion thread, which we'll talk about in a second, and it has a library of resources where all of the elements, resources, etc., have been added, and we'll look at that in a minute. And then also the list of members that are actually a member of the workspace. For the discussion thread, as shown here, and other parts of the Engage interface, Totor have added a simplified mobile-friendly editor called Weka. So this is a new one, and if you're familiar with Totor previously, they have the Atto plugin, but this is a new one, and it is much more simplified. So this still supports the usual text formatting options like bolding, italicize, bulleting, inserting a link, adding a file or image or an emoticon. And you can drag images and files onto the editor like the Atto plugin as well. And but it also supports a few new things. So it supports adding hashtags for searchability. It also supports a thing called mentions. So what really this means is that you can put in an @ sign, and then you can start typing the name of the user who might be a member of the actual workspace itself. And this applies also, by the way, to other comment areas, which we'll see in a wee minute. So when the content is, when you apply an @ mention, the content is submitted, a notification is actually sent to the mentioned user, which includes for example, the title, who mentioned them, the content included with the mention, and a URL to go back to Engage to see the content. As you can see, you can also search for on the interface here for terms in discussion forum, and the user can order the post as well in the discussion list. Each thread, by the way, that's in the discussion is you can get a link to it. This is the wee 3 dots you can see there, so that you can directly link from another area of the site if you needed to. And there are quite a lot of notifications that are sent out from a workspace that you belong to as a member. So for example, when a member replies on a discussion thread, it'll notify the original poster, or when a user is mentioned as I mentioned, or when you share a resource, for example. So as you can see in the interface, there is an option to, there's a wee bell there. Basically what that does, it allows you to mute the notifications from a particular workspace. And I have to say, from my experience, I find Engage can be quite noisy i.e. lots of notifications sent out of it. So it is quite a useful wee feature to mute a particular workspace. So every post, by the way, on a discussion thread, or even when you comment on a resource, it can be reported as inappropriate by the members of the workspace. So there is a reporting source to manage this. So this reporting source, as you can see, it shows you the inappropriate post and whether you want to remove the content or allow the content to be still shown. As a workspace owner, you can manage the membership and other aspects of the particular workspace itself. So you can add new members. You can, if you have appropriate permission, actually, you can add in audience members as well. But adding a member to a workspace audience, it's available for the owner themselves. That's the only person that can do that to a workspace, or an admin for the site, for example. So you can select any user on the site, even if multi-tenancy is enabled, unless isolation mode is enabled. So if it is possible to limit sharing, by the way, across workspaces, it's just when you add members to the site. So the only way to do that really is through the experimental feature of tenant isolation, which we covered in the last presentation, actually. So the actual resources that are posted by tenant members, if you have multi-tenancy on, are restricted to the tenant. So as I mentioned a second ago, you can add audience members. Now, a normal owner of the site, who is just a normal user of the site, cannot do this. It's more privileged users. So you can select a specific audience that's created on the site, and that will add the current members of that audience to the workspace. It won't continually sync at that point. It's just at the time that you actually select that audience. If you are the owner of a workspace, you can transfer the ownership to another user. That user that you're going to transfer to must be a member of the workspace. There's actually no approval process for that, by the way. It's just that the previous owner will now become a member of the workspace, and the new person who was selected will become the owner. So sort of talk in general terms of a workspace and how the owner sort of manages the membership, for example. Another part of a workspace is the library of resources, and these are a sort of collection of, as I say, resources. There's also surveys and playlists that members can collaborate on. So a resource actually is really like a web page that can be shared across one or more workspaces. A survey is, as it sounds, it's a poll-like feature that again can be added to the library and shared with members to participate on it. And a playlist is a collection of resources and surveys. And by default, any member of the workspace can add these elements to it. So when you're adding a resource, it's really simple. You add the title of it and then the general content, and the content is authored using the simplified Weka HTML editor, as I mentioned earlier. So once you've actually created the resource, you can indicate who can see the item. So you can decide to only make it available to specific workspace members, or all members of the workspace. You can also share the workspace, this resource, across multiple workspaces. And so once you've configured who's actually access to it, you need to indicate the time to read. So that's either less than 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, or more than 10 minutes. Actually, that's using the recommendation engine, and we'll come to that in a later point. You also need to indicate the topic that it might be related to. That's it, again, used as part of the recommendation engine behind the scenes. And as I mentioned earlier, you can share this, share the actual resource across multiple workspaces. So this is an example of a simple resource. On the left-hand side is the actual resource. Again, it looks a bit like a web page, very generic web page. Members can actually interact with the resource by liking it. So you can see there's a like option here. They can share it with other people, other workspaces, for example. They can bookmark it if they are, if it's not their resource. They can actually comment on it if they want to. And by the way, only the original poster can of the actual resource can edit the content of a resource. This part here on the left-hand side. And if they really need to, they can flag it as inappropriate as well. Moving on to what a survey is. I mean, it's very simple. Again, you give it a title, and it's multiple choice type question, so it's single answer or multiple answers can be selected, and you can provide as many real options as you want. It needs up to at least, obviously. When it's posted, other members can interact with it. As you can see, like a resource, you can still share it, like it, and comment on it, or bookmark it, as you can see. And once you actually select an option and vote, this is how it looks. It'll show you then the poll results. So now the next thing that's sort of the part of the library of a workspace is a playlist. So a playlist, as I mentioned previously, it's a collection of resources and survey, for example, and you give as many as you want, really. Again, a playlist can be shared, commented on, bookmarked. Now, the one thing that's slightly different here is that instead of a liking, it's a star rating. So once you have a library of resources and survey and playlists in a workspace, how can you search for them outside of the actual workspace itself? So if you're familiar with TutorLearn's or TXP, the Grid learning catalog, they've actually integrated Engage and as well into that catalog. So you can actually indicate that not only courses and programs and certifications can be searched there. Now, you obviously need to have TutorLearn at that point, as well as TutorEngage for programs and certifications. Courses you can still have in Engage, by the way, but you don't have completion tracking. Playlists and resources can appear on the actual search, so you can search for them. Now, what resources and playlists are visible to the end user to search for will really depend on their tenant membership, the tenant membership of who created the resource in the first place. Obviously, you need to have multi-tenancy enabled at that point, and whether the actual person viewing the catalog is a member of a private workspace or not. So if they're not, those resources or playlists won't appear for them. And it will. It also supports finding content based on the hashtags you've added to the resource, for example. So one other. So moving on really from what's how to find resources. There are actually 2 additional dashboard blocks that have been added to support Engage. And the first one is the recommendations block, and the second one is the recently viewed block, which we'll talk about in 2 seconds. The recommendation block displays Engage and Learn content that the new TXP recommendation engine has identified as that should be recommended to the user. And there's 4 different types of recommendation you can use. Now, when you add the block, you decide which type of those recommendations is used. It's configuration on the block instance when you add it. So you could have 4 instances of the block displaying 4 different types of content. So the first one is trending, and that shows you the top courses, the programs, the certifications, and resources, surveys, playlists, and workspaces that based on the user's interaction over the last day. The next one is micro-learning. So if you remember what I'm showing you, when you create a resource, you indicate the time to read. This is where anything that's been flagged as less than 5 minutes will actually be shown here, or potentially shown there based on the recommendation engine. Then there's courses recommended to the active user. Now that's not specific to Engage, obviously, and workspaces. So any workspaces recommended to the active user based on their other interests, etc., and interactions on other workspaces. So this is the other block that's been added, the recently viewed block. Now this is, again, it's not just for Engage, but it will show Engage content. So it as it indicates recently viewed, it shows you the last few items that the active user has opened, and that does support courses and programs and certifications to standard learning objects, and then also the resources, surveys, playlists, and workspaces that the user has recently viewed. So that will be up here as well. Now, what about reporting in relation to Engage? There are a number of new reporting sources available for Engage. That's the user engagement, resource engagement, playlist engagement, workspace and activity engagement, and the inappropriate content one, which we've talked about a minute ago. I'm going to show you a couple examples of the reporting elements here now. So this is the first one, user engagement report. So this provides a breakdown by the user on the resources created by the user, and that's broken down further by the type, public, private, or restricted. Comments made, the number of comments they've made, the playlist they've created, the workspace ownership as well, where they've created the workspace or the ownership has been transferred to them. The other example I wanted to show was the workspace engagement. So it's different to the user engagement one. That's by user. This is by workspace. So the engagement levels on each workspace. So you can see the number of discussions, the number of comments, number of files have been uploaded, who's the owner of the particular workspace, how many members they have, and how many resources and playlists are part of that particular workspace. So that's the covering generally the functionality within Tutor Engage, but I'd actually like to show you how it looks really in the browser itself before I move on to the MS Teams integration. So let me just move this across to here. So this is, I'm not logged in yet. I'm just going to single sign on in here. Hopefully this will be fine. So logged in, this is taken to the dashboard, but you can add a new section to the main menu of the site, showing your workspaces and finding workspaces. So as I showed you through the slides there, you can look at and find any workspaces that have been created and are publicly available to you to join, or are private, but you can request membership. So this one is a private one, but it's actually available to be requested to be joined. This one is where I'm joined already. I can leave if I want to as well. So I'll just go into this example. So again, it's showing you the image, the name of the workspace, whether it's private or not. You can turn off the notifications, and there's this discussion forum here. This wiki editor is actually, it's pretty good, I have to say. You can directly inject a specific, like say for example you had a YouTube video into it. If I post into it, it'll the link, I just copied the link of a specific YouTube post, and it will directly insert it into it. It's clever enough to find that itself, for example. And each one of these posts here, for example, can be liked if they're not, if it's not your post, of course. You can comment on it, and you can change it if it's yours, and copy the link for it, for example. In relation to the library, you can see this is very this has quite a lot of resources within it. It shows you the different types of it. This is a playlist, this is a resource. It gives you the time to read here, whether the number of likes and comments and shares and things. So going into a particular workspace, it shows you the content of it like this. I'm the owner of this from this user's point of view, so I can edit it if I really want to. I can add in hashtags if I want as well. You can comment on it if you want to down here. You can also thumbs it up or star rate it, for example, if that's part of a playlist. In relation to the list of members, you can see this is a list of members on it. If you have the capability, you can view the user's profile if you want to, and you can leave and mute up here as well. In relation to this flood plot management workspace. I'm the owner of this particular workspace, so I do have a number of different extra options. You can see I'm not a privileged user, so I can't synchronize audience membership to it, but I can certainly edit the details of it and transfer ownership to it. Okay, so that's just to give you a wee bit of a flavor actually how it looks like in the actual interface. And if I go into the record of learning, if I have that enabled for the site, this one obviously doesn't, but I could search by the resources and playlist types as well. So that's covering hopefully a quick introduction to Engage. Johnny, is there any specific questions that have been asked that need to be answered?
There is indeed, yes. We've got a lot of love for your tree and water conservation as well. Very sustainable and responsible of you there, Kenny, too. But yes, we've got a couple. Haven't answered a few of these. Is there a limit to the number of workspaces you can have, and can you limit the number of members in a group?
No. So I can't see why Twitter would put in any limiting factor for a number of workspaces. And I haven't come across a limit for the number of members in a particular workspace either.
Okay. Can content only be created in a workspace, or can it be created outside of a workspace?
Well, if you had MS Teams, which I was going to show you in a second, you can create your resources in the actual MS Teams interface, and they're yours, but you can share them with other workspaces.
Okay, so we'll get that one. Maybe come back to that one in the next section. A few more here still. Can you enroll audiences into workspaces?
Well, as I mentioned, you can synchronize the membership of an audience if you are a privileged user. Now, as I said, a normal user doesn't have that privilege because they won't have audience capability to manage the members or view the actual audiences that are on the platform at the minute. So they can't do that, but a specific higher privileged user, like a site administrator, can select one or more audiences, and at the time of selection, any members will be synchronized into or added as members to that particular workspace, but at that point only. It doesn't continually sync, unfortunately.
Okay. Good.
It's a feature we have asked Twitter about, I have to say, but I don't know whether it's going to be added or not in the future. It sounds like a useful idea, though, to me.
Added in, but potentially not removed if they leave the audience.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay, super. Listen, two more very quickly. Does Engage work with multi-tenancy that we've seen last week? Thank you for joining last week. And is that the isolation mode, is the question?
Well, multi-tenancy, it is supported in Engage. I would say I would classify that in a more limited way than it is for Twitter Learn. As I mentioned in one of the previous slides, I mean, it is there. You can't, when you go to add members, and when you're not in isolation mode, you can select anybody on the site. Now, I have to say, I find that reasonably open, maybe too open, but if you do have isolation mode on, it restricts the people you can see because the context changes at that point.
Okay.
Even without isolation mode on, any resource that you post is tenant specific, so you can't. It's a resource on the workspace. For some reason, it's at that level. Though you can have as many members from different tenants as members to your workspace.
Brilliant. Okay. Conscious time here as well. We'll let you get on with the Microsoft Teams. Thank you.
Not a problem. Okay, so MS Teams. So let me just get this is the final aspect of this particular presentation, because we're quite a reasonably short one today, and we're going to really look at its integration potential here. So Twitter Engage can be added as an app for our customers in Microsoft Teams, providing, I think it's quite a really good integrated experience for workspaces directly with an MS Teams application. And that actually, it's not even just for MS Teams, it's for Twitter Learn if you had that as well, but I will come back to that in 2 seconds. So this makes the user's library of Engage resources available to them within the MS Teams interface. Now you can see in this example here, there's an extra app, which is the Totara app here. So what do you need? I have to say, when I've set this up before for another customer, there's a lot of configuration required to get it to work. You obviously require the LMS. You need Microsoft Azure and Teams, and also whatever configuration you require. If you want to have single sign-on support, that requires additional configuration, and also if you want to have notifications synchronized between the LMS and MS Teams, then you also need to do a bit more configuration as well. So you need a Totara Engage subscription. Your Engage site has to be externally accessible by HTTPS. You'll need Microsoft Azure. So that means you likely need help from your IT team to set up some of the configuration elements. They need to set up basically a new application on Azure. And from that, you'll need to get the application ID from them. You also need Microsoft 365. Now, if you've got MS Teams, you have it. So, but you need the MS Teams configuration panel to be able to actually do the part of the integration work. And yes, you will need help from your IT team at that point. If you want to have SSO with single sign-on, between the two products, you'll need to have OAuth configured on the LMS side, and you'll also need the grid-based catalog enabled as well. I'll show you why in a sec. So if you are going to set up SSO, now assuming that you've done all the other configurations in Azure that you need. By the way, when I say Azure, that's a Microsoft product, Microsoft Azure. You will need to configure the new OAuth service, a new OAuth service under MS Teams. Sorry, on the LMS side. Now that's done under Server OAuth 2 services. It's not, you can use OAuth for authentication with Azure for single sign-on to the LMS without Engage or MS Teams. It is authentication type. And by the way, when we're setting up the specific OAuth service for MS Teams and integration, you will need to connect a system account, but you can use the create new Microsoft service option here. That'll pre-populate quite a number of the different elements that you need to do. You normally would have on an Microsoft Azure integration for a single sign-on. But you will need the client ID, which is the application ID, and an agreed secret, and that part you'll have to get off your IT team. So once you've set up the OAuth services, you've done the Azure part, you need to then configure the MS Teams integration for Totara. And there's a new area in the quick menu or quick launcher in the administration quick launcher called MS Teams integration, funnily enough. So you need to provide the application ID that you've got from your IT team here. You can come up with your own package name. It's not specific. It just you need to just follow a specific format for that. If you're going to have single sign-on, you need to indicate which one you've set up, and also you can also enable the conversation bot, which does the notifications between LMS and MS Teams. Next, so once you have configured everything, you need to then download a thing called a manifest file from the MS Teams interface in the LMS in Totara. And once you've downloaded that, you need to upload that into your admin panel in Office 365. And actually, it's in the MS Teams app part, by the way. So this when you're in MS Teams and you have to be an administrator to do this, you can go into the Teams apps, manage apps, and then you can upload the actual manifest file. After all that, you actually can use the integration. Because this is the final step. Mind you, if you do change the configuration on Totara, you will actually have to re-upload the manifest file. So what do users see? When a user logs into MS Teams, now it will depend whether your IT team has deployed out the app for use, or whether you need to go in as a normal user of MS Teams, go and select it. If your IT team has deployed it out to all your Teams clients, a new option will appear here. If not, if you use the 3 dots, you can go and search for the app and then add it to your MS Teams. So once you've done all that, and if you have SSO enabled for your site, so single sign-on, users won't be asked to log in to the Tutora app, LMS, in MS Teams. They'll immediately be shown this Find Learning tab, and this is how it looks, by the way. If SSO isn't configured, the users can still log into the LMS and show the integration of Tutora within MS Teams. They just need to add in the username and password. It'll show you at the login box first. And as the first tab you see is Find Learning. So you can see that when it looks very like the standard grid-based catalog that's within Tutora, users can still access their courses. They'll filter, any filters configured here will be shown. The only thing you need to be aware of is it doesn't take the branding. If you have a custom theme or brand colors applied to your site, it really doesn't take those across. But you can filter, you can access courses, you can enroll in courses. If a course is self-enrollment, so it's the same functionality as the group-based catalog. A course, this is how a normal course would look in the MS Teams integration. Though, as I said a minute ago, it doesn't provide any of the branding you might have or custom theming you might have on your site in the actual Tutora browser itself. And you can still access certifications and programs if that's there too. The only thing is, you need to have Tutora Learn and Engage subscription for this part. So on the current learning tab, which is the next tab over, it shows you this works exactly like the current learning block on Tutora LMS. Again, you clearly need to have both Engage and Learn as flavors set up for your site. Engage doesn't have any completion tracking, and it doesn't have any programs or certifications. So if you want to have those as part of your site, you'll need Tutora Learn. And finally, you can access all of your resources, your Tutora Engage resources, in any of the related workspaces that you're a member of. When you can still add your own resources if you want, or playlists, you just use the wee plus here. And as you can see, really, once you've published your Tutora app into your MS Teams, it provides a very integrated experience with MS Teams. As you can see, it's right in there, and I can see that really would help with adoption of your LMS and learning content and Engage, increase the usage of your LMS essentially, or your Tutora implementation. So that's the end of what I have to show. Other than I can maybe give you a quick sneak preview of how that would look in Tutora. The way we're running very quickly out of time here, so
if you go ahead, Kenny. Sorry, if you go ahead, I've got a few questions here. But if you want to go ahead with that, and if anyone else has any other questions, please do get them in, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of this, or potentially follow up afterwards if we.
Okay. I'll given the time we have, we've only 2 minutes, Johnny. I think I'm not going to be able to show you that, so we'll just go if there's any questions.
No problem. With Microsoft Teams, can you disable the discussion tab in a workspace and use the chat in Teams instead?
That's
a good question.
So you can see in the interface here, it's not showing you workspaces. Mm-hmm. It's showing you your resources and your playlists. So it's not. It doesn't pull in all of the workspaces you're involved with. It's pulling in the resources. So the discussion functionality is not within the MS Teams integration as it is. So yes, you could certainly use something that's in MS Teams, but as you can see, it's not using that.
Okay. The chat function, though, you're able to you're able to kind of share courses or share within Teams, I believe, as well.
Well, yeah, you can. But it's just, again, It's an integration, so I'm sure that Twitter will be adding more functionality as in later versions and updates from them. But at the minute, it's not going into a lot of the discussion forum or discussion feature that's part of our workspace. It's not there, but you can comment and you can share.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Are the recommended and recently viewed blocks available for adding to a course in Twitter Learn? So effectively, can we use those blocks in a course?
No, I believe so, but obviously it would be limited in relation to the recommendations it can provide, because Engage, some of those recommendation components are not just Engage specific, and some are.
Okay, but we do have a new in the footer, and also on the right hand side, I think, as well. The block spaces, I think, is that right, in courses?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Tutara in 13, yeah, they've added new areas for those as well.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
Super.
I mean I can show you that if we have time, but I mean it's
You're okay, don't worry.
it's those new position areas, so in the middle and the left and right hand side if you want, and the footer as well.
Super, thank you. In Microsoft Teams, do the courses open in Microsoft Teams, or does it link out to the course in a browser?
No, it's fully integrated, as you can see here in the slide. It's fully integrated.
I want to double check that, make sure that was the case. And as you said, it's just a theme that doesn't apply for those. And we've got one more question. Can you embed resources into a standard Tutara Learn course?
That's a very good question, and one we've actually put to Twitter itself, and you can't at the minute. Yeah. But it would certainly be something that I feel would be a good idea to have. The only thing I would say is I can see why they haven't at the minute, because there is certain permissions you would need to work out. So you may or may not be sharing looking at a resource at the course level, which you might not have access to, for example. Yeah. Be based on the private or private workspace, or you're not even a member of that workspace.
Okay, so there's not a resource picker as such, but if you really wanted to, as you say, I think you said there was a URL.
Yes, there is.
You could use the URL, and it's more of a manual add-in, but there's nothing dynamic or direct at the moment.
As I said, it is something we've raised with Twitter as a nice enhancement.
It would be indeed. Okay, thank you very much. And that's all the questions we haven't been able to answer. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Kenny, as well.
No
and so thanks for attending the webinar today. We do appreciate you all kind of taking the time to join us live, for posting so many engaging questions in there as well. If you do have any further questions, or you'd like to schedule a demo in with one of the team, please do get in touch with your account manager. Hopefully you've been able to see here there is a huge potential of Tutara Engage as a standalone platform, but there's even more potential when you connect it up with Tutara Learn as well. So any questions that come up after the session, or we didn't get the answer today, please do get in touch. And don't forget, we do have that one more webinar that's taking place next Thursday at the same time, where we'll cover the potential of Tutara Perform. All the sessions are recorded. We will share them on the YouTube channel within a few weeks, and you'll also receive a recording of the webinar into your inbox. But do take advantage to join us live, so you can really kind of share those questions. We really kind of enjoy taking the questions from yourselves. It's really good to hear the types of things that you're actually looking for. Look forward to seeing you all again. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you very much, and we'll speak with you soon. Thanks, Kenny.
Thank you.